This is Bryce Van Patten from Metal Express Radio Backstage. Today, I'm honored to have Mr. Chris Caffery of Savatage and Trans-Siberian Orchestra here to talk about the release of a greatest hits album from his solo career called 20 Years of the Music Man, a double album on Metalville. I've been a huge fan of Savatage ever since Island of the Sirens, as well as TSO, though being on the West Coast, I don't think I've got to see you live.
Oh wow!
Aren't
All
you in
right.
the East Coast version of TSO?
Yeah, I've ever since day one, I've been out here. Well, the first tour was only one band, but ever since we split up and we went both sides of the country, I've always been over here. I mean, we did the West Coast with the Beethoven's Last Night tour a couple of times, but I don't know if you had a chance to see that one. But
Yeah, I missed that one. I started seeing the shows here probably 10, 15 years ago.
okay, yeah.
I've seen you guys. I've seen the West Coast version with Al Petrilli about 4 or 5 times. So
Oh, awesome, awesome.
always a fantastic show.
Yeah,
And I was super happy the last time I saw him when they worked in some of the Wake of Magellan stuff.
yeah. No, it's been over the last what has it been 26 years I think we've toured, but the last easily the last 15 years of touring we were always throwing in something a little bit different from Savatage every year. It was always fun to see that stuff on that stage with that production. But now that we're playing again live, we've got Brian TSO's Lightman out on the road with Savatage for some stuff, so we've got some of those key elements going out with that too. So it's a lot of fun. That music is, it's so great. The stuff that Paul had created with TSO and what Paul and the Oliva brothers did for Savatage. It's just great live music. So it's a lot of fun to be a part of the shows.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you have a new album coming out that's a kind of compilation, two albums or 2 discs of 20 years of your solo career, 20 years of the Music Man. How does it feel to have 20 years of solo work to celebrate?
It's actually really cool. I mean, when Savatage stopped playing, and we never broke up, we kind of just stopped playing in 2002 was the last tours. And in 2003, I really started digging into writing some stuff. And in 2004, I'd gotten a record deal and started recording this music. And the last song that's on this was finished last year. So over the last 20 years, it's just a little roller coaster ride through the different kinds of music I'm doing. There's some unreleased things and some songs that were only released as singles and a couple that were only on some EPs. So out of the it's 2 LPs and 2 CDs, but out of the music, there's at least a quarter, at least a half of a full album's worth of material that really hasn't been out there before too. So it's kind of like a new half and 3/4 of a ride through the past.
That's super awesome. I mean, how can you talk a little bit about the tracks you picked and what made you pick those out? What they mean to you?
Well, when I first was thinking about releasing this new single I had, which is called Do You See What I See Now, I had done a few single releases and I kind of liked recording that format now because it was easier for me to just do one and focus on it and get it done. And I was thinking about maybe putting it in as a 20-year anniversary of my record that I had about war, which was called Warp, and actually originally was called Goddamn War. So I was thinking about maybe bringing the original title in and doing my first vinyl ever with that. But Metalville Records was kind of like, well, we don't, that would be a double vinyl. Can you do the song and maybe do you have any unreleased songs and the singles you had, and maybe you could record a couple more. So I said, well, let me get back to you. So I was thinking about what I could maybe do to meet what they had asked for, but I couldn't really come up with one single record that I thought was worth making a record. So I was down to, I'm either going back to releasing this as a single,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm going to try to think of something else. So I thought about time and what was been going on, and the fact that Savatage was coming back into play, and that it was a 20-year period from 2004 to 2024. I was like, well, maybe I could just piece together a cool little timeline of music and see if I could make a record that way. Of course, I failed miserably with that too, and had way more music than I needed for a single LP or a single CD for that matter. So
Yeah.
I convinced the label to go back to the idea of a double, and we did What's Going On Now, and I kind of just I took some of the songs that I knew people had really liked a lot or played a lot. So obviously some of them I went by just numbers on Spotify and things like
Right.
that.
That makes total sense.
But then I went with a couple that I really enjoyed, and a few that were on EPs that never had a chance to be on a record format. Songs like my one song Fright Nights and like I said, some singles that I did, and I just created a little timeline. I sat up one night listening to all the tracks, trying to figure out how to piece it together. And there's at least one song from every record I released, and I think it's a neat little ride over, the different types and styles that I did amidst my solo stuff over the last 20 years.
So I understand you're kind of a multi-instrumentalist. Are you doing the singing, guitar playing, bass? How many instruments do you play?
Yeah, I mean, I do some of the keyboard stuff. I never really brought my keyboards to the next level. I mean, I can play chords and parts and things like that, but
yeah, that's me on keyboards too.
I'm pretty, I'm an accomplished bass player as well as guitar player. I learned a lot about how to play bass, although I do like having someone play bass instead of me. So I will play bass like a guitar player still. A bass player will still sit there and listen to the drums and create a pocket that's different than what I could do.
Yeah,
I mean,
they think
I
differently.
can play drums, but I'm not great at it. I can sing and play through some other instruments, but I play a little bit of a lot of different things.
But you're doing the vocals on all your solos?
Yeah, most of the things, it's all my vocals. Actually, on that Do You See What I See Now song, though, it's actually me and Jeff Scott Soto sharing the lead.
Oh, sweet.
So Soto's, he had approached me when we were doing the pay-per-view for TSO during COVID and that live stream. And he said, how come you never have me sing on any of your solo stuff? Well, the main reason was because I did most of the singing on my solo stuff. But
pretty much, yeah.
I had this song, and it had me singing the verses, and it was a heavy song then, but then there was like another character that came out as it went to the pre-chorus and the chorus, and that character wound up being the devil. So I thought about it. I'm like, well, Savatage is playing. I can't really use John because, that we're already working together again in Savatage in a current time period. So, and he had done Mephistopheles on the Beethoven's Last Night record, but on the tour, Soto did it. So I was like, maybe I could get Jeff to do it. I just threw him an email, and he jumped on the idea, had the vocal tracks to me in 2 days, and I was really happy about that. And I used someone who'd been working with Jeff a lot in the last years, Derek Sherinian, who's been a friend of mine because he had known Al Petrelli for ages and ages. He had told me that he would play keys if I ever needed some stuff. So I approached him to do a little keyboard guitar battle, and he wound up liking the song so much that he had a whole entire wall of keyboards that I was able to use for the song. And I have Brian Tishy's playing drums again. He did my last couple solo albums, and he's done my last few singles. He's one of my favorite drummers in the world. And then I had
Brian's great. Isn't he in Dead Daisies?
He's out of them now, I believe.
But he was. Okay.
Yeah, he was. I think he's out touring with Gene Simmons right now.
Oh wow!
And then Sean,
a great drummer.
Sean McNabb did the bass stuff on this, so it's a cool single, and that's really on this record the only vocals that I didn't do. There's maybe I think a little bit of background vocals done on the song "Why" that were done by a guy named Lonnie Park, who had played keyboards and engineered some tracks for me and did some mastering and some keyboards on some of my things. But other than that, it's mostly me on all the vocals.
Yeah, I love the vocals. The first track on the album, I was kind of reminded of Udo Dirkschneider. So I don't know if that's a compliment or not. I love Udo, but you had a real gritty approach on that one. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing about my singing is I try to use it like an instrument. So I have lots of different timbres I can throw in my voice depending on what a song requires and how much I push it and where I pull it from in my diaphragm and stuff like that. So I'm able to sing the raspy stuff pretty smooth if I need to.
It sounded great. So, do you have a new solo album in the works, or are you busy with the Savatage, or?
Well, I mean, this record, like I said, is coming out, and it's kind of closing that 20-year period in the midst of when I was really waiting for Savatage to do exactly what it's doing now. So, I mean, I have material, but I think, once Savatage gets off the road, that I will probably have a clearer head towards writing even more, because the main reason why I had done solo records is because I really was missing Savatage. So I think that in the midst of that went maybe me placing in some of the kind of music that was there with Savatage that I didn't have in my life, but now that music's back in my life. So I think I'd be really interested to see exactly where I'm able to channel my energy towards writing my next wave of my own music, because I think I would probably, become even a little bit more trademark towards my own sound than I was. Because like I said, with the Savatage thing, you always had that element of their music that you loved so much that you placed into yours. But if I'm recording new Savatage stuff and playing all the Savatage things all the time, I think that it's gonna expand me a little bit more when I'm writing my own stuff to go some different ways. Not tremendously different, but just in different feels and sounds and experimentations with the arrangements and vocals and things like that.
So, on to the big question: is the new Savatage album in the works?
Well, I mean, if
I
you look at the
understand there's new
interview,
material,
John,
and where are we at?
I always look at to where I see John, because I try not to give information. I've learned that years ago, that I always wait for Savatage and TSO to make announcements, and then I back them up. And if
Yeah.
it's official news, I will say it. Or if it's something I heard people say with me in interviews, I know I can repeat it, not be the only one saying it. But John, I just saw we're actually in South America. I saw an interview with him that said that we were going to be, finishing the record up next year. So I know we've been working on songs for a long time, and he has a ton of music. And the goal is to get some new music out there, and channel the spirits of his brother and Paul as much as we possibly can, to make everybody proud of a new Savatage record. So I can't give an exact date, but that's part of the plan. And I think the main thing is that we are back playing again. We never did break up. We just kind of took a really long break, but we're back playing. So from there, just taking it a day at a time and looking to the future. And the next thing that happens, everybody will be the first. Now, actually, you guys will probably know before me, because that's how it usually works. The internet usually knows what I'm doing before me.
We get the press release before you even
I think
find
there's
out about
like
it.
live recordings of Savatage in Europe that are already existing of shows we've never played. It's like that. It's kind of the phenomena of the internet. It always has something fast.
So I was going to ask, have you already been working yourself on the new material, or have you heard what John has?
I mean, I've heard a lot of the things. I'm not exactly sure what's going to be the final list or what might be new. I've added some music to what he had. I had some ideas that he wants to finish. He had some ideas that he wanted me to add things to. When we get down to getting into the studio, I think that's when we'll, have the ones that'll get on the chopping block, the ones that'll wind up, in the main list, and then there may be some spaces we need to fill. When you do records, you always try to have certain styles of your songs that you want to have something like. It's not you want to have the same song, but is there a song that fits the mold of something like Chance? Is there a song that fits the mold of something like When the Crowds Are Gone or Believe? So it's kind of where you just piece together in your head what would be a Savatage record. I do that with my solo records too. Do I have a ballad? Do I have an up song? Do I have a slow song? Do I have a metal song? Do I have an instrumental song? It's like you piece your things together. So when it comes down to it, only the strong survive, but you usually tend to make a map that makes a pretty cool complete record.
Makes total sense. Makes total sense. So, is there going to be a tour with Savatage? I think you were talking about that. And who is the touring band? Is it the same guys that have
Well, we just, yeah, the same band we just brought to South America. I mean, when John is able to get back onto the road, is healthy enough to travel, he's going to be doing it. But we have Sean McNabb and a kid named Paulo. Paulo's from Colombia, and he's such a huge talent. They did the South American tour was doing stereo keyboards behind us, and they were doing a lot of background vocals too. And then we have me and Johnny and Al and Zach and Jeff. So it's the Dead Winter Dead band,
Yeah.
minus John, and we're back out there doing what we did. And it felt like it'd only been a couple of years, not a couple decades since we played. And you know, it's at the point now where we're just talking about this being the start of us starting to play again. So we're looking forward to it, and whatever comes up, we're going to do whatever's, you know, worth, you know, we're able to get out to and make it happen. We want to travel and we want to play.
So did you say Zach is in the band?
Yeah, Zach is singing lead when John is not there. He's singing everything, and if John gets back out on the road, then you know they will share like they did when they were together. But for now, Zach is singing, and actually John recorded a version of "Believe" where he sings half of the song and Zach kind of sings with him. So we have a video of John that we play along with, which is pretty cool for this bunch of shows we're doing now.
That'd be great. I'm pretty sure I have like a you know, one of those extra tracks of John doing "Believe." Or
Yeah, well, this is a brand new
just
one.
him on the piano. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is a brand new one that he just put together for us to be able to play to, and he, you know, did part of the vocals, and they kind of trade towards the end. And it's really awesome because he's there when he's not there. So
Yeah, I loved the albums when Zach and John were trading Dead Winter Dead and Wake of Magellan, or
yeah, that's the idea for the new music too, is to have them both singing.
just kind of back and forth like they did.
Yeah, I don't, you know, whatever.
Or whatever works, right?
Yeah, exactly. If it's going to be individual songs or songs that they sing together, I would have to wait and see. You know, everybody's going to know when I do. So for now, I'm just happy that Savatage is playing again, like the fans are, and we'll take everything, like I said, a day at a time.
Yeah, super excited to get to finally see Savatage. That would be great. So last bit, Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Still going strong?
Absolutely, and going to continue to. Our goal was the same as Paul's. You know, Paul wanted to keep the music going, and that's where his formula was for the band. And he was always saying, you know, guys, one day you guys are going to retire, and this and that. So the idea was to keep that music alive even while Paul was alive. And now that Paul has passed, we're going to keep his legacy and his music going. And this is the 29th year of TSO this year, but I think it's the 26th or 7th touring year. We started in 99 and we only missed the COVID year. So however many that is exactly. And then it's right now is the 25th anniversary of Beethoven's Last Night. Next year will be the 30th anniversary of Christmas Eve and Other Stories. So like I said, time is flying by us. You know, I can't believe that it's going to be, you know, this year is 30 years since we released Dead Winter Dead. It's insane.
So I'm sure you've been asked this question, but as a Savatage fan, I've always wondered. So what came first, the idea of TSO or the Christmas song on Dead Winter Dead that's on both?
Well,
like Sarajevo, Christmas Eve. So I've always wondered did you guys get some success? Did they pick up the Christmas song and you guys decide to go that route, or was it already in the works?
Well, that song, that arrangement was an idea Paul had from the day I started working with Paul right at the end of me being 17 into 18 years old. And he had always let me hear this version of that song that he had. And he had tried to get the Scorpions, I think, to do it. And, you know, I think
that would have been interesting.
He approached, well, the idea being he was working with Joan Jett when she was trying to break her career, and he was instrumental in the idea of her using Little Drummer Boy. And when Little Drummer Boy hit regular radio at Christmas time, they followed up with I Love Rock and Roll, and it was a huge hit because they set the wheel rolling with that song. So Paul had this instrumental, and it wasn't to make it a Christmas song, but you know, he had it in his head that it would probably get radio play at that time of the year. We
Mm-hmm.
did not plan it to be that way. It was on the Dead Winter Dead record, and it started to get airplay at a radio station in Tampa, Florida, that was an adult contemporary station, and it went to number one on the station with a large number of requests. And Mason Dixon, the DJ down there, approached the DJ named Scott Shannon in New York City. That was with I believe it was WPLJ at the time, and huge rock station in New York. And that song went to number one in New York City, right in the backyards of Atlantic Records.
Amazing.
East Dead Winter Dead, but Atlantic was like, this is great. We only had so many records printed. We put as many we could in the stores, and they sold. But the next year, they approached Paul, and they were like, "There's a hit song in this song, but there's so many further places we could go if it wasn't under the name of Savatage." So Paul had always had the idea for Trans-Siberian Orchestra. It wasn't to come out as a band that had holiday records, but he always had that idea of a band with limitless creative possibilities, and could have one singer or 10 singers or one musician or an orchestra. And
Yeah.
he saw this as the opportunity to launch that idea. And he had written his stories, this Christmas trilogy, and he worked it into music for that very first release around that song. And then Christmas Attic and Lost Christmas Eve were done to finish that trilogy. But the idea for TSO was actually something that Paul had had way before that. It just happened to get, its public birth through those records, which, had the Savatage song as the catalyst for everybody to say, hey, we believe we have a hit song there, and the rest is pretty much rock and roll history. We
Yeah,
reached
because
top
it works,
10 in
right?
the most tickets sold, top 10 bands and the most tickets sold in the last 40 years. So it's obviously a formula that's worked, and Paul really created something very special. And it's our honor to keep his legacy alive.
Yeah, he's sorely missed. And I want to say the first time that I heard that song on the radio, I was in some kind of regular little gift store or something, and they're playing the Christmas music, right? And then and I've had Dead Winter Dead, and all of a sudden I heard that song come on, and I was like, holy crap. How does Savatage get on this, you know what I mean? How did they get on this Christmas list in this, with all this kind of elevator Christmas music that you've heard forever, right? And it was amazing to me. So I was like, so cool.
When we finished mixing that song, I was standing there with Paul, and I was like, Paul, I really think there's a gold record in this song. And he was just like, from your lips to God's ears, boss. And, it was just something about it. It's a special arrangement. It hits everybody the same way. It's a great arrangement, and it's timeless.
Yeah, haunting, awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Just enough bits of the Christmas song mixed in with the heavy metal to just make it perfect. My last question, because I know you might have somebody else or not. So I know we miss Paul, and I believe you guys haven't done a record since he passed. Is there going to be another TSO album?
Well, there's music that he had written that we had not put out. I mean, the
Okay.
record that he had called Romanov, that he actually had shirts at TSO concerts for, was the first record he was working on with this whole concept of rock theater that he came up with TSO.
Mhm.
And, it never got a chance to be finished while he was alive. That record is brilliant, and it's some of my favorite music that I'd heard Paul write. And, hopefully one day that gets out there. That is the plan. To anything that's going to come out with TSO is only going to be stuff I believe that Paul had written. As far as I know, I mean, like I said, I don't make the plans, I don't make the rules. I just do
Right.
what I do, and I let everybody else make the announcements and let the world know what's going on. But I do know that there is music that he wrote, and there's another record too that was not finished. So, if anything does come out, and I hope it does, it's going to be the stuff that Paul left for us that nobody had a chance to hear yet. And we're leaving it to TSO and the O'Neill family to make the decisions on what happens with that and when. Like I said, I just am proud to be a part of it, and whenever anybody needs me there, I'm there. And I think I wait like everybody else to be here and the things that we haven't heard, you know.
Well, let's hope so. Keep our fingers crossed. Love to hear some more Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and super excited for Savatage, and super excited for your greatest hits release of your solo stuff. And
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited for people to be able to get something from me on vinyl without having to buy, 9 different records. It'll be fun for people to hold a vinyl because I know it's making its little resurgence here and there, and it'll be fun for people to have a vinyl in their hands as well.
yeah, is there a double cassette version?
Not that I know of, or there would need to be, I think, 3 8-tracks. Because if it was 8-track, it would need to be 3 8-tracks. Because there's 8-tracks only fit like 6 or 7 songs. So
Right, but I know there's this resurgence of folks wanting things on cassettes as bad as
is there really?
it's a big thing. There's
I haven't heard that. Wow.
yeah, record labels are putting out cassettes as well. So
I have not heard, and all right, they better be making them better than they used to because I have a lot of cassettes that barely
they
able to make music anymore. So
they still suck. It's just this nostalgia thing of like young people who think it's so cool. I think this is my opinion, but those of us old enough to have cassettes, like I still have boxes of them, and they're all terrible. I mean, and they weren't great then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they get old and moldy, and it's hard to get sound off. I mean, you were able to fit more songs than an 8-track, but
right.
CDs were a great way to get away from that. I'm happy the vinyl is back because I like the size of the package. It was like you're able to see something more than just the tiny little. The cassette was like it's just a little folding thing.
Yeah, those were unreadable, and CDs were like a shrunk down album. Albums have always been this beautiful thing you can have on your wall, and you can appreciate the art, and you can appreciate all that stuff. And I'm with you there. I do prefer the sound of CDs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so deaf now that not deaf, but I have bad tinnitus and everything. So my ability to analyze exactly what I think sounds better or not is not the best. In order for me to do it, it usually needs to be extremely loud volume for me to hear what sounds what way, and that's not the safest thing to do too. So
no,
I just I know it's crazy because you get a new car, there's no CD player. You get a new computer, there's no CD player. You get it's hard to find things that boom boxes were cassettes and CDs, and now you have to dig out and find CD players to play your CDs, and everything's in this digital world. And I'm always like, well, what happens if something ever just like destroyed all the digital world and you have no books, you have no music? I like having the hard copies of this stuff.
Yeah, physical product is great. I have to say now, I mean, in the old days, I'm a musician and I play in a band or two, and you would go out and try and give out CDs or all this whatever to grow your audience. But these days you just get a business card with a QR code that links you to your Spotify or your YouTube channel. And a CD, if I give them a CD, they like you said, they may not even own a CD player anymore, whereas they can scan the QR code and be listening to anyone's music in seconds.
No, exactly. That's the thing. But if you lose your Wi-Fi signal or something like that, everything
not perfect.
And I liked having it. So, but I was a VHS and laser disc person, and I liked my movies that way. And
I still buy Blu-rays. I still buy CDs of all the bands that I like. Like I have a pretty good idea. I'm buying your CD too. So.
I buy my own CD too because I like to buy my own record once. So
yeah, you got to have it sitting in that collection. But
I have them that I could get myself, but I always buy it from like Amazon or a music store if I see one. Just so I think it's fun to buy your own record when it comes out.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to let you go, Chris. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate the fun.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks, Chris. Bye.
All right, thank you.